My name is Erin Lerch, and I wrote Shrike, A Tale of the Post-Apocalypse. Throughout working on Crossing Flight, it became clear to me that there were more stories to tell in this particular world. And what drew me to this story in particular was that just throughout the working of Crossing Flight, because the main character of Shrike, Sheena, plays a part in Crossing Flight as well, it became really clear to me that while there wasn't really room in that particular story to flesh Sheena out more, there was a lot more to her character that I wanted to explore. So it seemed like the natural next step to write her own play. I have a lot of ideas for other plays set in the same world. I don't know how many more characters will cross over between them. There are characters that have been mentioned sort of in an off-screen way. They play a part, but they're not on the stage, that may show up in a future play. There is more of a, for lack of a better term, satisfying conclusion to Shrike. But that being said, uncertainty is a big theme in Shrike. There's a lot of people who have disappeared and we don't know if they're alive or dead, but they're gone. And sort of struggling with that uncertainty is a big part of the play. So in some aspects, those pieces of it are not going to be completely set in stone. Like, we're not going to find out what happened to Micah for sure. We're not going to find out what happened to Badger for sure in this play, because that's sort of the idea I'm playing with. I've honestly had a really hard time this time around with sort of all of the other characters. I came in with a very strong idea of what Sheena's arc was, because she was sort of the genesis for the entire play. But of course, now that the other characters are there, they have stories to tell too. And I'm working on delving into them more and figuring out, okay, what's going on with these characters. I would say that I do like post-apocalyptic stories, because I like the idea, and I've always been intrigued by the idea of things happening after the end. Like, the world ended, but the stories haven't ended. There's still people, there's still stuff going on. It's not over. That's always been interesting to me. And I just like sci-fi. I like the future. I like thinking about what might come to pass, both in a good and a bad way. But there's something compelling and reassuring to me about the idea that the world can end and there's still something going on. I think so, yeah. It's intended to be. I think especially Sheena ends the play in a more hopeful place than she starts it. It's helpful to have a mix of people who are both familiar and unfamiliar with the play encounter it, to get an idea of how much needs to be explained, how much people can follow on their own, that sort of thing. But it's also just the deadlines. Like, you have to bring something in to read, and so there's the additional external pressure to write something that's sometimes hard to muster up on your own. I'm a big fan of deadlines, even if I don't always meet them. Still a big fan. I really would like to get feedback from the audience about, whether the other characters are compelling, whether they're interested in what's going on in all the characters, not just, the main characters, and whether the conclusion feels earned. I feel like that's been a big struggle with this play as well. There are 3 alien characters and 4 human characters. The other 2 humans are sort of officers of the rebellion, of the human rebellion. And they have kind of their own thing going on that's intersecting with Sheena's story, but is not necessarily dependent on her. Without getting into too many details, she arrives at a very tense time for the rebellion, and it's sort of embodied through these 2 characters. Plan? What plan? I wish I planned it more, to be totally honest. I tend to just grab whatever's feeling most compelling to me at the moment and run with it. But, there are plays that I started years ago that I would love to finish one of these days, but I keep getting sort of engaged in new works instead. So I've been trying to push myself a little bit on that front and say, no, I want to work on this play. I don't want to get distracted with other plays. Like, I want to push this one through to the end because it's something special to have a completed play, even if it's not perfect yet. You need to have it done to be able to make it better. And that's, I think, what I struggle with a little bit. And I think what a lot of writers struggle with is that it never comes out as good as you want it to. It never comes out as perfect as it is in your head. And that can get you stuck sometimes. But I'm trying to learn how to push through. And, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not coming out the way I want it to, you got to get to the end before you can fix it. I think I would say get yourself some deadlines. Whether it's a writer's group that just means that you have to have something, whether it's, some friend or colleague who's going to hold you to it, or if you're one of those unicorns who can set your own deadlines and actually stick to them, which is harder than it sounds. Get a deadline. You have to have something finished. I think that's what I'm feeling right now is like the key piece of advice is like, just finish the dang thing. Figure it out later. I think that can work for some folks. A writing schedule is really important for some folks, but I also know a lot of writers and other creatives who just don't have the kind of schedule that you can say, I'm going to have this hour open every time. Like, it's just there's too much going on. But I would say getting in the habit of writing is good. Even if you can't do it every day, even if you can't do it for the same amount of time every day, just get in the habit. Keep engaging with your work. Think about your work. Like, find ways to get it out there because that will make you think about your work. And just stay engaged with it until you can figure out where you're going to go. And that'll make you want to write. Like, if you're thinking about it a lot, you're more likely to sit down and actually write.